for another episode 15 of
we're
Shining the Light
digging
On.
in now.
Right? How are you? How's your day? We're going to be talking all about aspartame.
Yeah, this has been an interesting topic, which seems to be getting some back in the spotlight, right? Because at least, and I think there's other states too, but at least the state of California is looking to classify aspartame as a carcinogen.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That
And
is definitely, even the WHO, the good old WHO, who I don't trust one bit and haven't since we woke up a few years ago after the pandemic,
right.
is also saying they're going to declare it carcinogenic and something else. But don't worry, that's the headline. But don't worry, like it's just ridiculous.
Change your life at all.
It's just have to
change. Yeah. No.
Like, really, you're still, but don't worry. Like, come on, who's believing that still? Anyways.
Yeah. I mean, I remember learning about aspartame back in the early 2000s. I think I was reading a book that I wouldn't recommend. I wouldn't recommend now, but it was Skinny Bitch. Do you remember that book?
Yes.
Skinny Bitch, the vegan Bible, basically.
Yeah.
But in that book, there was information about different things to watch out for and avoid. And one of them that she had talked about was aspartame. And what I'd learned is that aspartame itself, it took it 15 years to get approved by the FDA, and it was rejected many times. Something like 12, maybe I'm wrong. You can, if you know that data, I was trying to look for it to confirm it, but it was rejected several times. And what I learned was that the reason it passed wasn't because they could prove that this wasn't a dangerous substance. It was because they kept buying the prosecution. Yes. They kept buying the lawyers who were saying, no, do not approve this. And the aspartame companies, whoever was, the one pushing it, was just buying the prosecutors till there was no one left to fight them, really.
Yeah. And a couple other things that I learned, and there's a documentary called Fed Up that also talks about this, but also it was by accidentally discovered in a lab. A man was doing a chemistry experiment and some landed on his lip and he licked it and it was very sweet. And then he did further experimentation and it was developed. Now, it was in the 80s that they approved it during the Bush senior administration. And of course, there was a huge influence from that. And we know Bush senior wasn't playing for the right team, right? So all of that. And then the lab and the research building that they did all the research in, the real research that was showing how dangerous it was, conveniently burnt down, right, with all the research. And then they paid a bunch of new researchers and funded right. So we see how this works and how it got conveniently pushed through by the FDA, knowing that it was never, and here's the other proof. Buy some Splenda, buy some sucralose, get some aspartame, go sprinkle it on an anthill. Before it was approved by the FDA, it was the best ant poison you could purchase. Okay. And it's legit because I've tried it and it works. And it's like, if it's killing ants that fast, think of what it's doing to your body. And then for a quick breakdown. So when we consume aspartame, which is actually like very addictive, it spikes your blood sugar 10 times more than sugar. If you're stranded on an island, pick sugar over aspartame, seriously, because it's so chemical, but it spikes the blood sugar more. It heavily suppresses our metabolism. That's why we see people who think it's a good weight loss option actually gaining a lot more weight because it's suppressing the metabolism. The body can't actually recognize it as any kind of a food source to break down. And so it's literally like the liver and the body are like, I don't even know what this is. And it literally absorbs it into the bloodstream. The liver is like, oh my God, I don't know what this is. And then we store it in our fat cells as formaldehyde and we literally pickle ourselves from the inside out. That is aspartame. That is sucralose. That is sweet and low Splenda, equal, right? Maltitol. They keep trying to change the names to try and trick people, but these are all essentially under the same umbrella. And I really encourage you to make sure you're reading your ingredient labels. Sneaky things this is in: protein powders, right? all your
Yeah.
diet drinks and a lot of your 0-calorie drinks, albeit we're seeing a bit more stevia and erythritol, which is better, obviously not artificial sweeteners. A lot of your diet products, granola bars, a lot of the granola bars, they're advertising like only 4 grams of sugar and kids are eating them full of sucralose, right? So now they're really even targeting the kids. It's not just the weight loss or the diabetic industry anymore. It is now, a lot of these products kids are eating.
Yeah, it's considered like a healthy alternative.
Yeah, exactly. So make sure you're reading your labels and you're looking for artificial sweeteners, flavors, sucralose, aspartame, sweet and low, maltitol, right? Like there's never just one name for it. Saccharin, there's so many different names. But that's my little education moment.
Well, there's still a lot more to dig into because like you mentioned the formaldehyde, which is one of the things our body secretes from consuming this, right? But it's also classified as a neurotoxin.
Yeah.
So that means it's crossing the blood-brain barrier.
You're right. You know what's funny about that? Can I share something? Because you just brought this back to my memory. So before I fell into binge eating and went on my healing journey and woke up to all the food corruption and everything, I actually was going to school for communications and broadcasting. And I had to take an ethics class. And I knew nothing about food or anything at this point. And so I decided to do a paper on aspartame. And I started doing all this research, and these forums started popping up, aspartame injuries, where all of these people were talking about how they started to think, oh, these are better products. They're ending up in wheelchairs. They're ending up with neurological issues, multiple sclerosis, like paralysis, brain damage, literal like gaping holes in their brains. And no one can figure out what is going on. And then they end up in the hospital, or they end up in a state where they can't access the aspartame anymore because they don't know that's what it is. They stop the aspartame and all of a sudden they start healing. I mean, some had permanent damage and couldn't, right? And of course, when they try to like file lawsuits and stuff, they don't get any attention because of course the corruption. But this is what's happening to people there. It's literally so the neurotoxins, these neurological issues, it's literally can cause brain damage, let alone all the other things in the body. Like that is horrible that it's doing that kind of stuff to people, and people just consume it like crazy.
Let me ask you, do you know, is aspartame or sucralose or both in cereals?
Some, especially if they're like, I find some of the the ones that have a lot of colors and like, you know what I mean? Some of those can have it for sure. And then as well, if you're going to the diabetic store, like there used to be this chain here. I don't think it exists anymore, but it was like the diabetic shop, and everything they sold was sugar-free. And so everything was full of aspartame, the candies, the cereals, the drinks, right? Baking mixes. So yeah, 100%. It's literally, look at your drinks, even like, and not just pop, but like the vitamin waters or like the Gatorades, like those are full of artificial sweeteners, sucralose, right?
Right. No, I was just asking because, you know, in the United States, they're trying to change that food pyramid, and they're making cereals healthier than consuming any meat products.
Lucky Charms, which I guarantee you the marshmallows have aspartame in them.
Yeah. And I mean, the crazy thing is, like, I'm looking back at my history. It's like I consumed so much of that stuff. I was before I read that book, actually, I think that this may have been when I kicked it, but I was having Coke Zero all the time. I was like the Coke Zero girl, you know, cherry Coke Zero, vanilla Coke Zero. And I had them every day. It was like, oh, you know, and this is fine. It's fine to have it because I'm not consuming calories.
Yeah.
So I'm not doing anything that's going to make my body gain weight. And yet I was pickling myself like constantly.
Right. Yeah. And this is the thing, is we're sold, like, I remember intuitively when I was young, like we'd go to this one ice cream shop and we'd always order a beverage, and they had these Crystal Light things. And for whatever the reason, I'm like, I don't want that. And I guess it was just maybe this inner knowing I didn't even have yet, but my body's just like, I don't want Crystal Light. I don't. And then I learned later that they were loaded with aspartame, and that, thank God, my, whatever that little nudge was, had my back, because I probably would have been addicted to it.
I just realized, have you heard of this water talk phenomenon? Have you heard of water talk?
Mhm.
Right. So that for those who don't know, water talk is a trending TikTok thing where what you're seeing is women getting big, huge water bottles and they're mixing all these like Crystal Light like additives. And
Mhm.
some of them are like Skittles flavored, Starburst flavored.
Yeah.
And then they're pumping sugar-free syrup and they're like, they're putting like 10 pumps sometimes and a packet and calling that water. And they're like, no, I'm doing this to stay hydrated. But all of that, and it's all like supposed to be sugar free. It's like all part of like a weight loss or health regimen and to get them to drink more water, but they're literally loading it with these chemicals,
Mhm.
artificial flavors, artificial colors,
Yeah.
making Mountain Dew water and things like that.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, oh my God, that you're taking something that could be very healthy and helpful for your body,
Yeah.
and you're literally turning it into like a toxic
Yeah.
juice.
It's just poison. Complete poison. Yeah, no, and a lot of those like Mios and those little squirt to add flavor, that
Uppers.
most of that is full of aspartame. And that's what keeps it 0 calorie, right? And they market it. And of course, that's why in school they don't teach you how to read ingredient labels, and why they teach you to look at the calories, and that the less calories, the better for you. Because obviously they knew what they were doing when they created the school system and Rockefeller and all that stuff, right? Because they knew they're like, hey, we're going to misdirect people. We're going to invert this, and we're going to get them to look over here instead of over here, because this will keep them asphyxiated on the calorie focus. And, oh, well, it's got no calories, so it must be good for me. Yeah, but have you researched aspartame? Have you researched this ingredient and seen what it does to the body? Well, no, I'm too busy chasing a weight loss goal because I'm insecure and I hate my body, right? So this just goes to show you the depth of the programming, the brainwashing, the infiltration into the mind, and how distracted they've made us to follow these products that are literally poisoning us. But because we're so asphyxiated with chasing a number, right, or whatever the thing is, losing weight, achieving a certain health goal that needs me to cut back on sugar, we're not even looking at the ingredient label and seeing that this is not even like, shouldn't be legal for human consumption. We're just chasing that superficial thing. And we all did it. So like, no shame in the
Oh my
game, not
gosh,
judging, but like,
not
this
at
is
all.
literally the depth of like,
Yeah.
it's
And
shocking.
it depends on where your mind's kind of caught up, because
Totally.
I was definitely caught up. I mean, I remember at the time where I was like the Coke Zero girl, I was also running like up to 7 miles a day.
Wow. Yeah.
Right. I was trying to be a healthier person. I was really focused on the exercise part. And as long as I wasn't consuming excess calories, as I was being told, regular soda, that's excess calories,
Mhm.
right? So don't do that. And don't have a bunch of ice cream. And, but other things were like processed foods, were packaged meals, make it easier
Mhm.
for you. Obviously the diet sodas,
Yeah.
candy, because I was still, and I'm sure that there's a connection there, because I remember one of my fixes for me was at 11 p.m. almost nightly, I needed a Coke Zero and I needed some sugar.
Yeah.
I needed like a Reese's peanut butter cup, and I would literally like ask my husband to run to the store if we didn't have it and go get him at
Yeah.
11 o'clock at night. So I'm sure that something's happening, at least for me, something was happening chemically where I needed the sugar with this thing, which was
Oh,
weird
totally.
now that I think about it.
Yeah. And it's funny that you bring that up, because a lot of the products have sugar and aspartame. And I think what that does is it increases the dopamine high and that
Probably.
euphoric moment even more, and makes you even more addicted than if it was just one or the other. Right. And of course, they're
Totally.
great at combining that. And then they'll throw MSG in there, and they'll throw in other addictive
Right.
ingredients, so that it's literally like you can't help yourself. They've
Yeah.
designed food purposefully to make you addicted and to lose control. Right.
And when
Or
we get
these
into
food products.
when we get into the cards, we'll sort of ask why about all
Mhm.
this. But
Yeah.
if you look at how things are set up, and especially, I'm coming from the point of view of a woman who's been seduced by the system. So I'm just going to share with you what I see. But it's like, first we're shown, this is your ideal. This is what you should look like. And then we're shown
Mhm.
these people consuming these products and telling us that this is how they got that way, right?
Yeah.
So here's media or advertising
Yeah.
supporting the food
Celebrities.
companies, which are creating, hidden illnesses, not telling you that that's what's going to happen, but they know that
Yeah.
these are the side effects behind it. And where do you get shuffled from there? You get shuffled into the medical industry. You are becoming a customer for the medical industry to keep that
totally.
going. And many times the people who work on the board of like big pharma companies will also be working on the boards of something like Monsanto. We actually know, you know, Hillary Clinton sat on the board of both Monsanto and Pfizer at the same time.
Yeah. No surprise, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so funny because here in Canada, Splenda sponsors the Dietetic Association and Basal Margarine sponsors the Heart and Stroke Foundation. So it's like, oh, eat melted plastic to help your heart, but it's actually going to do the opposite. And yeah, consume this thing that could actually cause diabetes or make your diabetes worse, right? It's all about the money. Follow the money. If you do, you find the answer so fast. Right.
I mean, and this is really like, you know, a lot of people, when we're talking about systems and how things run, I can hear it's because what I'm hearing in my head is like, well, this is a good excuse of why capitalism doesn't work. And it's not the free market society that causes this. It's consumerism and it's materialism, which, there we go.
I'm just bringing this up. Yeah, we're here. We're good.
But it's the consumerism and the materialism that create this kind of, you know, it's one of these vicious cycles where they're actually creating it and
here we go,
expanding on it.
Yeah, 100%. And then once you're addicted, it's hard to stop. Well, and then when your doctor's telling you should use, and your dietitian is telling you should swap your sugar for aspartame, because that's literally what they've been taught in their 4 years of school, because that's paid for by these big, right, Splenda companies as well. Like, it's literally like this person is putting their trust into this person's hand because they're supposed to be an expert, right? So it's literally like, you've got to take your power and your sovereignty back, do your own research, and maybe try and work with people that are a bit more holistic, because we all know that this is not part of the game, right? So should we talk a bit about sucralose and the harmful effects of it? And then we can talk about some great alternatives. We can make those suggestions.
Of course. Yeah.
Right. So it's not just all like, holy crap, but it's a chlorinated sucrose derivative. Okay. It's derived from sugar and contains chlorine.
Right. So you are your body converts it back to chlorine as it's consumed. So
like red flag.
It would be like drinking pool water.
Yeah. Delicious.
Bleach our insides.
Right. Yeah. And so Splenda, right, is the big sucralose. I mean, a lot of products will just say sucralose, but Splenda is the big brand. 600 times sweeter than sugar. And it's obviously very synthetic and made in the lab. So there is maltodextrin in Splenda, dextrose. It's got a lot of bulking agents in it. And of course, this is what's heavily promoted to diabetics and sugar-free and all this kind of stuff.
Okay. So wait a second. So you're saying it's for diabetics, and then the first thing you see under side effects and dangers is may cause diabetes.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Exactly. You talk about a clown world, right? But and there's lots of studies on this. You can go to PubMed, like you can go and find this proof, and it's in the pudding. Like, I've had so many clients who have been addicted to aspartame, and we wean them off, and then finally their hormones start to balance, their anxiety goes away, their depression goes away, their appetites regulate, the weight starts to come off, because this is causing massive issues and imbalances. It fuels inflammation, right?
Can I have a quick side note?
Yeah.
So one of the things that was really frustrating about all of this, because of course, when people hear this, they're going to want to do research. And I definitely encourage you, go figure it out, go do the research. But here's the kind of sketchy, nebulous thing is I went on Google because I, like I said, I've read this before and I wanted to pull up information and the facts. You go into Google and all it talks about is how, aspartame isn't as dangerous as people are saying. And it's ad after ad of that. There's nothing that talks about it. I literally wanted to find out how many times it was rejected, aspartame, by the FDA, because I know that it was, and it won't admit to that. All they said is, well, it wasn't that it was rejected. It was that the studies were inconclusive. So they had to keep going back. And no, it was rejected. It was knocked down and they bought the prosecution, but you cannot find that on Google. I went on ChatGPT because I was like, maybe I can use AI to find the answer. And it's trained to tell you the same thing. The only way I could get this information was to go on Brave browser and go in that way. And then I found the article. So it's the truth is being blocked from us.
Big time.
And the reason we're using Dr. Axe again is because I know he's written about it. And so if I type in Dr. Axe's website, if you type in the actual website that you know has the information, then you can get it. But you will, I asked it to search for it and it wouldn't bring it up.
It's just the proof of the heavy censorship that's going on, and it has been for a while. Another great resource, if people want to check out a second doctor, is Dr. Mercola, Mercola. He has been talking about the dangers of aspartame for years. And then, of course, he started to pipe up about all the pandemic stuff and like all kinds of different like MSG and like horrible ingredients. And he got so heavily censored, he had to like start his own like back end, like where people could come and subscribe, because he was literally getting threatened. So it's like, it's the truth. If you're literally, your life is getting threatened.
Right. If you're over the target.
Like, hello, it's, but he's another great resource too, like Dr. Axe.
And what's so frustrating about this is they act like they're so transparent about it. But if this was really safe for you, why is it being censored? That's the first question we want to ask. If this was safe and there's nothing nefarious about it, why can't you get the information? Why are you being misdirected to sites that are very well sponsored by the same company who's trying to protect their own ass in this situation?
Exactly. Exactly. But so it could cause diabetes, right?
Which is insane. That's insane.
Yeah. Because it gives you a much bigger chance of developing 67%. Like that's an insane, and that's type 2. And that type 2 is self-created through highly processed food intake, inflammation, right? So it's a diabetic trigger.
Just right there, though, they're creating a perpetual patient. These patients who believe that they're doing something that's going to benefit their health or subdue their symptoms are actually now on a hamster wheel of perpetual symptoms because of the things they're doing to help themselves. And that's just evil.
Yeah, right. 100%. I totally agree. Increased risk of IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, and Crohn's disease.
Yes. This is what I suffered from when I was on it. I had such bad lower bowel symptoms when I was using these products regularly. It was bad.
Well, it messes with your gut microbiome and your gut bacteria, and it fuels inflammation. And if it can't be properly absorbed because the body doesn't know how to break it down.
Right. I was listening to a microbiome scientist talking about how it kills the bifida in your GI tract. And she's like, this is a huge sign that this is not good for you. It should not be killing this very important microbiome in your gut.
No, exactly. It should not be. What else? Linked to leaky gut? Of course it is, because again, the more compromised the intestinal lining, the easier it is for food particles and things to poke microscopic holes. And then you have bits of bacteria and things going on in the bloodstream that shouldn't be there. And then your immune system's constantly having to attack and clear out these foreign invaders in the blood. And then your inflammation goes through the roof, and you increase your chances for lower immunity and autoimmune and all of these things. Of course, they, covertly plan this out sneakily to add this into our food products. It's in toothpaste. It's in your mainstream toothpaste. It's in your mouthwashes and your flosses, all of your Sensodynes and your Colgates and the big brands. That's loaded in. And so if it messes with your gut microbiome, you have one in your mouth too. So you're messing with your mouth microbiome and making your oral health more susceptible for issues as well, right? Oh, and here we go. May generate toxic compounds when heated, carcinogenic. Okay. So you're baking these beautiful muffins with your Splenda, heating them to 400 degrees in the oven. Okay. Dangerous, potentially toxic compounds. Now you're eating this carcinogenic muffin, sweet, right? I feel for these ladies. I go to the store, bless these little old ladies' hearts, and they're putting the Splenda into their cart, I know they're going home to bake those muffins. And I'm just like, oh, I wish that you knew what you're doing to yourself, because they have no idea. They think it's better.
It's just the sad part is all of these actions, the people who are taking them, they're doing it with such good intentions. They want to take care of themselves. They want to make healthier choices. We all do, right?
Yeah.
And then we find out, I mean, that's where it feels like a slap in the face, because you are taking extra effort, doing the work, trying to make what you believe is a healthier choice, only to be slapped in the face with, this is actually worse. You would have been better sticking with sugar than going this route.
Totally.
That's
I know
cruel.
it's angering. And when you first wake up to especially the big food and pharma in bed together, there's a process of anger you go through. I was so angry when I learned all this, and that's okay. Process your emotions. There's lots of better alternatives, and you vote with your dollars. Stop giving your money to these companies. It makes a huge difference. And then of course, the fifth one is associated with weight gain, which we were talking about earlier. These products fuel weight gain. They suppress the metabolism. They fuel inflammation. They literally throw the whole body off. They mess with your gut. Right. So that's all very connected. Right. And then, I mean, I feel like we've already kind of talked about this. I
think
really,
he might have a chart in there too, but
good. Okay.
Going back to the weight gain, they know that this creates weight gain because they do the lab tests in mice and rats, right? So what they're finding is that you've got this really obese rat who is on Splenda or Equal or Sweet and Low or something like that. So the very thing they're promising you it's going to fix, it's guaranteeing that it won't, which keeps you again in the vicious cycle. And that's right where they want us, because then you are you're desperate. And the more you try to fix it using the methods they suggest, the more you see negative results, the more you're going to try the next thing. And then because you're starting to get desperate, like I'm doing everything right. Why is this not working?
And not only does it, impact your physical health negatively, this stuff has a serious negative impact on your mental health, anxiety, depression, all kinds of different, feeling like an emotional roller coaster. And obviously it also impacts your frequency. I guarantee you it contributes to the calcification of the pineal gland. It lowers your vibration because it's literally like a poison made in a lab. Like it's impacting every aspect of us, potentially increases risk of cancer, right? Carcinogenic. So we know heart disease and stroke. Oh goodness. Nervous system and brain disorders. We were talking about that earlier. Mood, right? There it is. Fibromyalgia, chronic pain.
Can we, for a second, PMS, and I remember talking with you about this initially when we started working together, because I did have pretty severe PMS symptoms. I don't anymore, which is, I didn't even think that was amazing. And I remember you telling me that women shouldn't be experiencing PMS. And I couldn't believe you at first, because I'm like, I have had this all my life and it was so bad. And I had a lot of this stuff in my diet because as a child, it was brought into the house because that was the healthy thing, right? And then as an adult, those were the choices that I'd make. Anytime it was like low fat, sugar-free, that kind of thing, I thought, sweet, I can have my cake and eat it too, right? No side effects.
Yeah, totally. But it fuels the inflammation that fuels some of the PMS symptoms, premature menstruation, autism, kidney disease. Like it's a lot of things, probably more than is on this document, right? It's very deep and it's very sneaky, because they just started sneaking into a few things and now it's in so many products in the store. So read your ingredient labels. That's like my first proactive step. Read your ingredient labels. And there are a lot of great alternative sweeteners. Stevia. I love monk fruit, comes from the monk fruit itself. That's very low glycemic, those two. Raw unpasteurized honey, pure maple syrup, coconut sugar, maple sugar, brown rice syrup. Like there's all kinds that come from nature that have different glycemic indexes, depending on if you do need something more low glycemic, if you are a diabetic. But there's so many available and they taste great. And I find the more you reduce these processed sugar, fake sugars, your taste buds wake back up, and you need less of the natural stuff anyway, to be honest with you. Fruit tastes super sweet all of a sudden. So there's,
the beautiful thing about the alternatives obviously is that you actually stop craving sugar. And what I can tell you from my own experiences, when I was using Splenda, and I would be the girl who'd go to Starbucks, get a black coffee, put 2 packets of Splenda in, right? Like I was such a good girl, like doing the thing I thought was the right thing. But I had such bad sugar cravings, and I felt
Yeah.
so much guilt and shame for that. That was a hard one for me to admit, because like I said, 11 o'clock at night, and I'd be like, Coke Zero, Reese's Pieces, like I had to get my fix.
Mhm.
Since getting all of that out of my system, and I use stevia, I use the raw honey, I have the monk
Mhm.
fruit, and I love the monk fruit because you can get it as like brown sugar for baking. You can get
Yeah.
it as, so it's like, it's a perfect, and it's the same amount. So you don't have to
Mhm.
like figure out, okay, how do I use this like sugar? It's the same. So if it calls for a
Totally.
cup of sugar, you put a cup of the monk fruit in there
Yeah.
and it works. But the beautiful thing is now it's like, I still love sweet things, but I don't have that craving where I feel controlled by it. Literally,
Yeah.
I keep bars of chocolate in my freezer, or not my freezer, my fridge, and they last so long. And that would not have happened in my past. I would
Yeah.
have, that bar would be gone in 20 minutes. And now I break off a square, I enjoy it, and I move on,
Mhm.
and I don't obsess
Yeah.
over it being in the fridge and like think about how do I get that without anybody watching, which I used to do.
Yeah. It's freeing. It's freeing to not have those cravings and those urges. So should we pull some cards?
Yeah, let's do that.
So I guess the first question is like, why have these ingredients been allowed to be truly allowed to be put in this food? Like should we even ask that question? What do you think?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, let's ask that. Let's start with that. Why would they
Sure.
even allow it?
Yeah.
Right? We kind of know, but let's find out what the
Yeah,
cards say.
exactly. And as always, for any of you watching live, feel free to interact. If you have questions, leave them in the chat. If there's certain topics you want to see us dive into, please let us know. We are wanting to share and dive deep and help give more insight and support and guidance on these topics. So let us know. But I'm curious to see what the cards have to say.
Oh, interesting. It's meant to F with your mind.
Makes sense, because that's what we were talking about earlier.
Right. And it's actually sending messages. That's the craziest part. So this is like the Prince of Swords. In other traditional decks would be the page. Pages are messengers, and swords represent the mind. So it's literally meant to make you more susceptible to their messages. And if you think about what Amber had said earlier, it literally is like making holes in people's brains because it's a neurotoxin. So it is crossing the blood-brain barrier. And the part that's crazy, and this again, this might feel like a bit much for people. So, take what you can, leave what you don't want, but there is signals getting sent to us all the time, whether it's through the TV, whether it's through movies, the radio, we're getting signals, like literal frequencies being sent, but also suggestions all the time.
Yeah.
And what this does is it lowers our ability to discern or block out, and it allows us to be more easily programmed. And if you think about it, it's like, okay, let's say I'll use the aspartame as an example. Okay, so I'm switching all my sugar for artificial sweetener, and it's not working, and I'm gaining weight, but I'm not stopping taking it. My critical thinking isn't going, that shit doesn't work. Yeah. Instead, I'm looking and I'm open to suggestion. It's like, I just need this diet pill and my Diet Coke, and then I'm going to lose weight. And now I'm like wired up and strung out. It's still overweight. Nothing's changing. I'm still having binging and craving or things like that. And now I'm going to take a shot. I'm going to take some Ozempic, pop this diet pill and drink this Diet Coke. And then, and then you end up having, heart palpitations, possibly a stroke, possibly suicidal ideation, because all the chemicals you're taking in are literally going into the blood-brain barrier and causing these problems. So it's a mind control agent.
Yeah, totally.
That's really intense. And there's a secondary, it's a control mechanism is basically what I'm trying to get to. Yeah, that's why.
100%. Thank you to those cards. Totally makes sense. Do you have a question?
Okay, yeah, I do have a question. I want to know, because some of us have consumed this for long periods of time. Maybe people watching are consuming it now. Yeah. Some of us have consumed it for, I would say, a majority of their lives, right? So what I'm curious to know is, can we heal? Does the brain heal specifically after getting this out of your system? So I want to ask about that.
Perfect.
All right.
I feel like,
So it wants me to shuffle it good. Okay. So can we heal this? Does the body heal completely after having these in your system? Like this one. Okay. So interesting. We got the 2 of Wands here in the reverse position. So this is about a rebalance does happen here. But it takes longer. So if it were up in this position, then it would mean like spiritual energies easily flowing, stuff would be balanced. We stay imbalanced for a little while. The road, if you look closely at this picture, there's this road, this long winding road back to this sort of like the temple of the body, right? In this position, it is a long journey back. So there is some significant damage that happens. I'm not saying we don't heal, because I don't truly believe that. I don't believe I would be able to tap into my own intuitive ability as strongly as I do if I was really damaged. So I don't believe that, but there is sort of a long-term side effect. This stuff, it doesn't leave your system quickly. And if you think about it, formaldehyde, which is one of the side effects of aspartame in particular, is an agent used to preserve something.
Yeah.
So
like they use it in like funeral homes and stuff.
Right. So we're literally preserving this stuff in our body for a while on a natural level. Like if you were to just stop taking it and do nothing else, the healing or the releasing of this stuff would take you a while. But I am getting that if you were to increase you would need agents that pull things out of the body. So what like I'm getting is
thistle
and zeolites
supports.
I really get zeolites would help, or charcoal, taking charcoal tablets. That I'm going to refer to Amber about the proper way to use it, because even these things that are meant to help us detox, we can, as I've personally done, we can overdo. So Amber, if you were to suggest this to us, that we could help ourselves pull some of this out of the body faster, how would you suggest we go about using things like charcoal tablets?
Well, here's the first disclaimer. You got to check with your healthcare practitioner before you take this stuff, especially if you're taking medication. You got to know your current state of health, because we're not liable for anybody trying anything. And you know what I mean? So very important to make sure that it's suitable for you, because not everything is suitable for everybody. Next step is you start slow and small, just a little bit, right? I think it's also important, along with not just taking supplements, you got to make sure your detox systems are open, daily bowel movements, supporting your liver. So that's why I think milk thistle and lemon in your water, dandelion tea are really safe, gentle options to make sure your liver is, flowing through toxins. Start with some lymphatic dry brushing. We need to make sure that the garbage removal system of the body can actually clear it out. So maybe even start with those, your detoxification systems. And then from there, you could go into a little bit of charcoal or a little bit of zeolite. The dosing is going to really depend on the person, but you start teeny small little bits and you see what your body can tolerate, but you've got to make sure your detox systems are moving. Otherwise, you're just going to hang on to all of this toxicity and keep reabsorbing it. So that would be my suggestion. Lots of water, right, as well, to make sure you're flushing your systems.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would even suggest, if you can get support in doing this, like hiring someone like Amber to help you through this, because right before I started working with Amber, I was on a detox rampage and I literally was overdoing it. My body was like, that is way too much. And I felt really intense lower back pain. Felt like maybe I was pushing my kidneys a little too hard for what they needed. So it works much better when you have support, when you have someone who can read your blood work and check where you're at and make sure that you're like she's saying, you're in a position where it would actually benefit you and support you. But even from a spiritual perspective, what you can do now, if you're unable to do those things, is you can ask to help expedite the process from an energetic level, right? So we can activate ourselves on a spiritual level and say, I didn't know I was
Mhm.
absorbing toxins. I really believed I was doing something well. And I completely forgive myself
Yeah.
for believing this, because we all did. We all
Yeah.
believed it at some point.
Mhm.
And so therefore I completely forgive myself. And that's an energetic release. And then you can simply ask your higher power, your team and spirit, to help you gently restore the body, restore me on an emotional, a physical, a mental, and a spiritual level. And in doing so, whatever you end up doing to aid yourself physically, the spiritual component will help speed that up, because it, like I said, that some of this stuff just has a long-term effect. It doesn't mean it's as powerful as it is when you're taking it,
Yeah.
but it's in there.
Totally.
It's going to take a while to move.
Yes. So be patient, be compassionate, and one little step at a time, but stop consuming it, read your labels, get alternative sugars. And this has been Aspartame. What a great conversation, Therese. Where can everyone find you?
Yeah. So if you want to hear more about what's happening on the spirit side, you can check me out at blythestarlight.com. You can also visit my YouTube channel, which is at Blythe Starlight. And if you want to work with me on the spiritual level for one-on-one mentoring, you can contact me through my website at blythestarlight.com. How about you, Amber?
Amazing. So if you want support with this gentle detox to wean off of aspartame addiction, sugar addiction, whatever it is, all the details are below, amberapproved.ca. You can book a 30-minute body freedom consultation. And there's all kinds of other things available there. And you're welcome to reach out and we can talk about a journey that could feel good for you to help assist you on this, cleaning up the body and connecting more deeply with your awareness and your intuition. So it's been a pleasure. Another incredible episode. Hope you all have enjoyed it. And we'll see you again for the next one. Take care, everybody.